Hey, folks, welcome back to the Land Fixer podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Logan Swanson. We have a very exciting guest today, but before we get into it, reminder, if you need any funding for your land flips, land division, subdivisions, entitlement projects, anything like that, check out landpartnerfunding.com. I will happily assist you with any of those projects. If you want to get in contact with me because you are a land owner and you're looking to do some forest appreciation strategy on your property to try to get top dollar, I'm happy to help you with that as well. Today we have coming in from Houston, Jose Berlanga. Say hi to everybody.
Hey, Logan, how are you? Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So, if you would, please give us a brief overview of who you are, what you do for business, and then I'll start picking your brain.
Certainly, I'll try to make that brief because it's been a long journey in the world of land development, construction, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. Most of all, this is the fun part of the part that I enjoy about my activity is the business side of things, not necessarily any one given activity. But yes, I've been an entrepreneur for going on 40 years since I started my first business. It wasn't always in real estate. It was in an array of other things. One thing leads to another. You know how life takes us in
Oh,
all
yeah.
fun directions. And at some point, I ended up in single family home construction business. And that led to a lot of land development, land investing, land speculating, revitalization of forgotten neighborhoods, inner city neighborhoods. And I'll be glad to get into all of that. But essentially, yeah, entrepreneur, investor, builder, developer, and
Well,
now a
let's.
writer. By the way, now my the funnest side of part of my job is now I'm writing. Working on my third book right now.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Well, let's go way back. I'm always interested in learning a little bit about, you know, folks that live non-traditional lifestyles like us, sort of entrepreneurs taking the hits. What was your first venture and what was the reason that you decided to go that route as opposed to punching the clock somewhere?
Well, the question of all questions, we never know if we're born entrepreneurs or if our circumstances take us there. I've always been intrigued since I was a child about owning a business and building something on my own. It's always scary, but I was more scared of working for someone else and almost depending on someone giving me a chance to grow within a business or within an industry. So my inclination was to take charge and just start something in initial. So that's been my whole. And I've always been curious about products, services, possibilities, creating things, creating value.
Hmm.
Buying and selling and brokering and so on and so. Since since I was a child. So when the time was right, I started a company and it's I haven't stopped. I have not taken a break. As I said, I'm going on almost 40 years when one opportunity led me to another one and they almost overlapped. They encroached. I haven't taken a day off in between businesses. Have not taken a sabbatical. My first business was related to the oil and gas machinery, exporting of valves, piping, machinery for the oil and gas and petrochemical industry. And before I was done with that one, I had started something else and something else. And so I keep saying I need a break. I need some time off, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, right when things slow down, right? That's
Yeah.
when entrepreneurs take a break.
And the irony is that when things are doing well, oh, you're having fun making money. But when they're doing bad, you're too busy putting out fires and solving problems. So there's never a good time for you to just walk away and take some time off. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, or you have to be very intentional about it. Like, I mean, my business partner, he does a great job of it. He's I don't know, in his early 40s and he's just rolling around Europe, all over the country, all over the world taking I perpetual vacation. So I think he's doing it right. That's not the
Yeah.
path that I've gone.
Me either. And I don't know what to attribute it. Certain personalities are a little more anxious You have to not only be busy and continue finding a purpose. There's this constant search,
Hmm.
endless search for something that you don't quite know what it is. And that's been my focus, where even as I try to take a little time off, I start thinking that there's something better I ought to be doing. And it brings me right back to a life of work and responsibilities.
Yeah, well, there's like, for me, it's like there's this feeling of endless potential. I'm never reaching my potential, which means I always have something to work for or strive for. But I think also once you sort of have owned and operated a couple different businesses, a couple different types of businesses, you sort of feel like they're all achievable. So
Yeah.
you get interested in something, you're like, well, I could do that. I could go build an airplane, whatever it is. You start feeling like there's nothing that's keeping me from doing that. So why don't I just go and do it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there could be so many ingredients that make you want to keep going, that keep you busy. Everyone has a unique story. Mine, I saw so many examples. I grew up in an environment of very unstable
Hmm.
currency, Mexico, where I saw millionaires come and go. People make millions, lose millions, be up, and then the next year or the next presidential period, they were completely broke. And I always had that fear in the back of my mind of seeing examples throughout my life of people that made a lot of money, then retired. Something went wrong with their investments, with their currency, you name it, economic cycles, mistakes in the way that you invest and go about putting your money in the wrong places. And the fact that they had retired made it almost impossible for them to reincorporate themselves in the business world. By that time, whether it's a year or 5 years later, things are moving at an incredible speed where you may become obsolete in some industries. And starting again after a certain age, once you remove yourself from your industry or from that momentum where you're involved in business, becomes harder. That's been in the back of it. Now, as I think about it, I mean, I can talk about this for hours and hours. This is more the psychology behind why some people are more hyper than others. But I've always had that concern that I don't know what the future holds, and I better stick around while I have the ability, the clarity in my brain to keep working. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. People talk to me about like, do you ever plan to retire? I was like, what would I do? I love being extremely busy. I love constantly solving. I mean, like crossword puzzles aren't gonna scratch the itch. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So it seems like you've gone through, home building, all these different aspects of real estate that you've listed. Can you kind of walk me through maybe a little bit where you started and your motivation for taking each step to where you are today?
Sure, sure. Now that real estate has truly become my life in every aspect of my business career. It started there. It was a very humble beginning. My brother, being an architect, my younger brother, I always say that I had no intentions of becoming a builder. I just wanted to be an entrepreneur, and the product truly didn't make a difference to me. If it was software or cushions or bedspreads or machinery, it made no difference. I liked the business world. I loved making money. That was building a company was important to me. And the circumstances led to starting a construction company, being that my brother was an architect and we partnered. So we started with a small bungalow in a neighborhood, in a transitional neighborhood here in Houston, with a very small investment, and we didn't do well right away. I must admit, it took us years actually before we started making money. But the purpose was not just to make money; it was to build a company to fulfill a dream of working together and perhaps doing something that more meaningful than just making money right away. And the fact that we stuck to it for a while, eventually we started perfecting the process and the product
Hmm.
and in opening up new markets and understanding the business. The probabilities of us having succeeded were low because we didn't know anything about the industry. So that was how it started. And we began to build a model that was very different back in the late 90s, early 2000s. The inner city did not have volume builders, or if custom builders were doing a handful of houses at a time, we started doing dozens, 30, 40, 60, 100, then a couple of hundred homes in inner city pockets. And our business model, funny that it became what it was because we had no idea what we were doing. So we
Mhm.
reinvented the wheel. Now, a lot of companies do what we do, which is inner city scattered construction, semi-custom with many floor plans, many elevations. The logistical aspects were horrible because you had to manage so many construction crews in so many locations. We had a lot of employees, a lot of HOAs, a lot of everything.
Yeah.
Managing so many locations, small locations, was terrifying. It was excruciating, as opposed to managing 2 or 3 subdivisions with a few hundred homes going on at the same time. We had a few hundred homes in dozens of locations. So managing was very difficult, but it became profitable. And we got to grow. We got to build and become the pioneers and one of the few that were achieving this type of model. So we educated a lot of people, of course, that copied and followed our footsteps and became just as successful as we were. But not knowing the business gave us a niche of the hard work and the dedication allowed us to create this new market. Now inner cities are obviously have come back
Yep.
with a vengeance, and in the price aspect and in every aspect possible. So that was it was growing and grow. The moment it took off very aggressively. We went from working and sacrificing and suffering for a few years until all of a sudden it started making money exponentially and growing exponentially. Of course, until the financial crisis, the housing bubble.
Yeah, right in time.
Uh, yeah, that destroyed, that brought us right back to square one because we were at a aggressive growing mode in the
Mhm.
in time when we were over leveraged. I still don't know precisely how we were able to survive that. We had so much debt, so many developments, so much
Ugh.
of everything. It caught us at a very, very vulnerable moment, but we survived it, lost millions and millions in the whole process. It was a terrifying experience, but we rebuilt the company, and little by little we began to diversify because of that experience, where other areas of real estate became handy. We began to also do investment properties and, income producing. And again, one experience led to another. We started doing some land development and some multifamily and blah, blah, blah. So now we're in a little bit of everything real estate related.
Okay, so that's what business looks like today. You're still building homes, you're developing land, you're
Yes.
flipping land. Are you doing any just straight?
Yes, yes, and it's still a pain. I must say that this business never gets easy for one reason or another. It's either booming, so everybody uh, saturates the market. Everybody wants to be in it, or it's horrible and there are no opportunities. Or well, there are always opportunities,
Yeah.
but it's very difficult to navigate through those opportunities. So, too many people chasing good deals. There's no secret now. When I started, there were many more opportunities because there were markets that had not been
Yeah.
discovered yet. Now there's very
Mhm.
little that has not been discovered yet. So we've began to diversify in other areas, but yes, it's always challenging. It's always competitive. Whether it's the economy, whether it's the saturation of participants, whether it's interest rates, whether it's uncertainty. Right now, if I had to name the number one, res- let's call it objection or issue that is complicating our industry is affordability.
Yeah.
If I had to name one, because there are buyers, there are everything is set up. The economy is somewhat stable. There are a lot of positive signs. People with good credit, with a desire to own a home or to own investment properties, but between interest rates and the fact that everything got so expensive much faster in relation to salaries, to wages.
Yep.
I think that's the number one problem that we're facing right now.
Yeah, I agree. And we're seeing this everywhere. It's like even I used to always say, as long as you're staying in the affordable side of things, you're always going to have a buyer. And though I think there's wisdom there, I'm even seeing a slowdown on the affordable properties. You know, the stuff that it's such a price point, I always assume there's a buyer for it. So
Yeah.
tell me, what are you doing in your business to combat the affordability issue?
Well, if you can beat them, join them, which is what we have been doing a little bit. We have been doing a lot of land development for the bigger guys, for the
Okay.
public companies, which are they can tolerate these issues because they can subsidize the economies of scale, their ability to build very inexpensively, the speed in which these public companies build. And they don't want to carry a lot of land positions on their books.
Hmm.
They want to jump in and start building the next day. So we partnered with some of these companies and done some land development for them. That's one of the things that we're doing. And still building it, trying to remain in some of the sub markets, some of the areas that are less competitive. You mentioned the entry level. I'm seeing that to be the most affected because that's where interest rates. I mean, if they increase your payment by a couple of $100, that's a big
Yeah.
deal. The entry level. Once you get into the multi-million dollar, it's not as impactful. Those are still steady somewhat. The multi-million dollar would, but so again, diversification. Ironically, I don't always recommend developers, builders, investors to diversify because you can't be all things to all people. It's hard to specialize. It's hard to become good at something if you're trying to hit too many markets.
Right.
I only recommend it once you've done this long enough and you have enough resources and the ability and the understanding of lower price points. The suburbs are different than the inner city, and multifamily is very different than single family and commercial and so on and so forth. So you have to specialize and understand one market at a time before you start expanding. So that's where we're doing a little bit of everything, which again, it's not recommended in your early stages.
Yeah, no, I made that mistake early on. Well, since this whole podcast project for me is a selfish exercise in vanity, I'm curious if you would walk through. You talked about being the developer for national builders, and I'm currently in a situation where we're in the process of entitling some lots. It looked like we were going to have a contract with DR Horton to sell them paper lots, and now they're saying they want them developed. So
That's the
we're in the
case in most
yeah.
situations.
Yep. And I've been talking to other friends that are in the industry, and they're all saying the same thing. All the national builders want finished lots. They don't want. So tell me, how do you structure that typically if you're the developer or the middleman? Are you being brought in from someone in my position who's like, hey, we need these lots developed? Do you buy them from the entitler and then develop them and maybe already have a contract with, say, a national builder? Is that the process?
Yes, yes. I'm experiencing the exact same thing. We had larger developments and we were seeing our certain price points not move.
Hmm.
So we just stopped putting new product on the ground and we just held on to our land positions. Thankfully, we were able to afford to do that because now our leverage is very low. We're putting a lot of equity in and buying a lot of our properties cash, and it gives us the benefit of time.
Yeah.
So the opportunity, a similar situation arose where we were able to sell lots to public companies. And you're right, they want shovel-ready lots. They don't want to develop them because there are so many unpredictable aspects of developing land, from time, surprises, additional costs, the regulations change, inspectors change, everything
Yep.
a little bit harder. Once you have a let's say permitted site,
Hmm.
those lots ready, they can take over and build very quickly, very smoothly. So what we're doing is either buying paper lots or converting some of our own, buying raw land and going through the entitlement process ourselves.
Hmm.
And there are several ways to go about it, depending on the relationship that you have with some of these companies. You named D.R. Horton, Pulte, Lennar,
Yep.
AV Homes. So some of those companies, they're ready. They're always looking for lots ready to be built on. But if you're able to locate a property and they like it from the get-go, you can enter into some type of an agreement where you already have written commitment from them to buy those lots before you start investing a lot of money. That's the ideal way. If you can do that, you have to have some relationships with these companies. You have to be bringing them, tying up these properties, doing some of the preliminary due diligence and the examination, because they might have interest and they might say, yeah, we love the property, contingent upon you being able to get them to the finish line. So
Right.
that's the trick. And the second one is, of course, you have to have the financial ability to develop those lots for them. In some cases, we take on a full burden, a financial burden, where we'll buy the property, we'll entitle it, we'll develop it. And then you can either go into a contract prior to starting the development or after the fact. There are different ways, and the more risk you take, the more money, like everything else, the
Yep.
more money you make. If you sell them once they're already developed, you'll get a premium because they're ready to go. And they normally want them in a stable economy. But if you try to tie them up early on, you have to compromise on the price, of course. You have a safer transaction because now you have someone committed to buying those lots, but the price is already established. So there's no chance for you to be able to make a little extra money when these
Right.
lots
Well, I'm
are
curious because we're kind of staring at that situation right now. One of the things that I've been trying to figure out is, okay, say we did go through and develop the lots. How are you sure you will develop them in such a way that you would have multiple buyers at the end? Is there like a standard home site size or layout that you think is, or from your experience, you've identified as being attractive to most or all of the national builders?
no. You have to have those conversations. If you're going to develop for one of the big guys, one of the big companies, I don't recommend to just make any assumptions. They have their
Mhm.
specific floor plans, their specific footprint. They like to repeat them. They have sometimes they'll adapt if the deal and the location is just too good to pass. But normally they will set those parameters. So you need to meet, they want a 40 by 80, they want a, 35 by 9.
Yep.
Whatever they're doing now, whether it's in the inner city, sometimes they want larger properties. Of course, if you're in bigger properties in the suburbs. So you have to have the conversation, discuss it with them, see what their plans, and then run your numbers based on what they want and see if it makes sense. So yeah, I wouldn't go with my gut instinct or guess what each one of these builders, because even within their own companies, for example, we've sold developments where they're sharing them with a couple of companies or sharing them, and they want different size lots. So you have to plan ahead of time.
Right. So one phase is going to be this size, the next phase is going to be this size. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. That's kind of what I was wondering because when you said, well, we might develop it and then bring it to market, I'm like, how do you even do that? How do you know what the
Because
builders will
now
want?
we know what some of these companies want.
It's
Now
through experience that you,
experience, correct. And that's still even a gamble because they might adapt or change some of their floor plans. So, but there are some parameters that you try to follow. And yeah, the ideal scenario is for you to have a chat with some of these guys and see what they're looking for.
Yeah, and that's effectively what we've been doing. So good, we're on the right track. We hired a consultant, so I'm not flying blind. But so I'm curious, are you typically, so say you're looking at a raw piece of land, you want to develop it. Are you, is your company willing to try to go through a rezone in order to maybe maximize lot yield or something like that? Or are you typically going to buy based off of the zoning in place and then optimize for that?
No, we're willing to. Well, let's back up. In Houston and most of the areas where we
Right. No
operate,
zoning.
there
I
is
forgot.
no zoning, so we have that advantage. We have gone into areas that have zoning, and it's a much lengthier process. So
Hmm.
if I could avoid it, I would. The best way to go about it, if you're trying to rezone something, is to not only have the conversation with your builders, but with the city officials or the county and understand what the probabilities are. So yeah, we've worked in areas that we know we understand are going to be a difficult process. So before we start investing too much money, I mean, part of our budget, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in research, in investigating properties that we end up just losing because it didn't work out. We've done that in areas around Austin and in areas in Dallas and other places where it didn't work out, and we had paid consultants and engineers and designers and whatnot, and extensions to feasibility periods because sellers are normally not as patient. So yes, you can invest a lot of money just to figure out if the property is going to work out. So that's why you start small before you can afford to take on bigger developments. And during that period, you'll find out if there's an appetite for this type of product. Every county, every group of individuals that run the area will have a different logic, whether they're willing or open to rezoning something. It is possible. Then you have to figure out what the neighbors are
Hmm.
willing or wanting to do. So when they're zoning, there's absolutely a longer process. It could be a year or a
Oh,
couple of
yeah.
years before you actually s- have a final answer. And if you get there, now you have a very valuable property. That's the good news. My recommendation in this case is that you sell the idea to the landowner, the person who's trying to sell the property. Get time from them. Hey, we're going to need 6 months. We're going to need a year. But you're going to get more money for your property. Allow us for a nominal fee for a small amount of money to go through this process. And if it works out, you get to sell your property for the right amount. Sometimes we even attempt to bring them as partners, give them some money on the back end if we're able to approve some of these entitlements. But yeah, rezoning is possible, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, that scares me. I'm like, I don't want any of that. I want to know what I can do with the property by just reading some fine print. So for your business nowadays, since you're diversified, you're experienced, you have all the wisdom of these years behind you. What are the sort of developments that you're looking after or looking for rather in terms of geography, size, lot yield, that sort of thing? Are there fish that are too small for you right now?
No, no. And by the way, the wisdom never ends. We continue to learn. It's incredible. After decades of doing this, I keep learning. I keep realizing what I don't know. Of course, I'm not technical. I'm not an engineer. I have a great team that does all of the research from beginning to end. And even my team continues to learn and keep getting surprised. So to answer your question, what type of deals do I go for? I'm at a stage where if it's too complicated, I avoid it just because I'm not willing to take on that journey. I've been there long enough and enough times where I don't want to go through the suffering process. If I was younger, if I needed to make a deal, I would invest a year or 2 years working on a big deal, and if it works, home run. But I'm looking for deals that I understand, that I think have good probabilities, high probabilities of working out, and that are not, I wouldn't say problem free, but at least that they make sense.
Hmm.
The most profitable ones, ironically, are the ones that come with a bag of headaches.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're able to solve them, now you turn a problem into a very profitable transaction. So being able to entitle something that has low probabilities and successfully can make you a lot of money. We've done a couple of those, but no, as far as size, we'll do properties where we can do a 20 houses, 18 homes, all the way to a few hundred. Now we're working on something relatively big, of a couple of thousand lots.
Wow.
Yeah, here in an area that has no zoning, but it's not in the county, in the city. So we have to go through a process that we're learning again, because again, every subdivision, every part of town has requirements for, to creating a mud district. What are going to be not only the requirements, the time frame, but the cost involved in creating a municipal utility district? Those can be very uncertain in the
Hmm.
cost and in the requirements in the time frame. So learning and going through the due diligence process is every transaction is different. I'll leave it at that. You have to just be open minded. I'll give you one example right now that we're going through. We already own this property. We did the environmental examinations, phase one. Even we went to the extent of a few additional steps. Soil samples, we drilled in a number of places, but there was an area of the property where we didn't dig deep enough. And it turned out that they had been dumping sawdust, a lot of it, a mountain. Turns out that in some areas, they were just dropping it. We've also bought a property that used to be a landfill
Yep.
facility, but we didn't dig deep enough to really find that out. Now, because we were inner city builders, as we started experimenting in other areas, we realized that you have to dig deeper when you drill for those borings need to be, to 20, 25 instead of we would go 10 to 15 feet just to test the soil and understand what we needed to do for our foundations and for designing our structures.
Yeah, you
Eh,
have to account for the redneck variable when you get out in the country. Yeah.
yeah. And some of these here. So now we're facing, we've had surprises that are in the millions of dollars
Oof.
because we didn't take the right precautions. So it happens. I'm still learning. That's the trick. And we keep adding to our development checklist, let's call it, every time. Obviously, you don't want to go through that same mistake twice. So when we learn something new, a new regulation, a new step, a new procedure, we keep perfecting that process of researching a property.
Yeah, so in your due diligence now, there's a line that says sawdust question mark, check yes or no.
Yeah, yeah, incredible. But now we have to look for things that we never imagined. And being able to understand the access and being able to understand how you're going to bring those services, and then a very interesting one that you'll find not only in inner cities but out in the suburbs and rural areas, that not every department that you have to get authorization from agrees. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
developers that don't have enough experience, they'll talk to the engineering department, for example, or for their city. They'll go to their city and get their opinion. Oh yeah, you can do this or that, or you can do this, but don't do that. And then you'll go with it. You'll go through all you'll start investing time, investing money, acquire a property, but you forgot to talk to the utilities area, or you forgot to talk to the people who are going to install cable, or the fire department, or the people, the forestry that is going to determine what you can and cannot do. And now you've invested all this money, and Not everybody ended up agreeing with your project, and you're back to square one. We've had that experience where we made the assumption that
Mm.
by talking to one set of individuals that regulate certain aspects was enough, and it wasn't. We ended up realizing that there were other people involved in the decision making.
Yeah. So, because of that, do you go out of your way to maybe find local civil engineers
Oh,
and things of that
absolutely.
nature? Yeah.
Yes, you nailed it. We, it's you have to go to the specialist.
Yep.
You don't. There's a neurologist, there's a cardiologist, there's a surgeon, there's an anesthetist. Whatever you want to do, don't just rely on a law firm, for example, to create a subdivision or to help you through the process just because they know the business. It has to be an expert in
Hmm.
that particular area of town or city or county. We've learned that too, where we brought the wrong team to the wrong area, and we learned the hard way. You nailed it. You have to get people who specialize in that territory. Let's call it.
Yeah, you want to talk to somebody who's like, nah, Bob on the city council's a jackass. He'll never approve. Yeah, like that's the sort of like mentality
Exactly.
that they need to have.
They know who
So,
to talk to.
yeah. So, you've got this wide footprint. You've got all sorts of aspects of your business moving forward. Are you good about setting goals, say 1 year goal, 5 year goals, 10 year goals, or do you have some sort of clearly spelled out trajectory for your business that you're working to attain? And what might that be?
That's a really deep question because I'll respond by saying the practical the reality of business is that it's hard to plan in real estate. In theory, I'm always a planner. I always recommend people to have a business plan, to have a mission, to have a 5 year, 10 year, whatever. This is a very cyclical industry, and having a very detailed plan is helpful. But the more I live, the more realize that the famous saying, we plan and God laughs.
Yeah.
The more I try to prepare for these cycles, the more I keep confronting new changes in the environment from small companies and builders and developers all the way to the public ones. They change philosophies, they change needs, they change strategies. They adapt to what's going on in the economic environment. So I try to now plan on a case by case. I don't plan time wise. I plan project wise
Yeah.
because time can kill deals, and also circumstances change.
Hmm.
So I just try to secure one property, do it right, perfect the process, understand it to the best of my ability, and understand what is our capacity, what is my ability to develop and to deliver for the next couple of years. I've tried to chase the market. I made this mistake in earlier on in my career, where we need to develop in the $1 million because it's hot right now. And
Yeah.
then by the time I would buy and develop and build, now it was in the 3 million. And then we would chase the 3 million, and now it was in the suburbs. And then when you chase that market, now it's back in the entry level. So you just do what you need to do and you try to become good at it. And the market is going to turn around and come right back to where you were in the first place. I've been through experiences where I wish I had more homes or more lots in an area where it's doing very well right now. And then I attack that market. And by the time I'm there, now it's back to where I used to be a few years ago. So no, it's hard. It's getting hard to plan. So you just really, really focus on what you're able to do, and make sure that you have the financial capacity to develop what you have on your plate, whether the market does well or it does horrible. Have a contingency plan would be more my recommendation than planning for the long term.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right. So we're getting near the end here, and I do want to ask you the $100 million question if you want to put your fortune teller hat on, where do you think we are? We're September of 2025. You're looking at, say, the future of your business. Do you go about trying to predict the future or keep your finger on the pulse of the economy? And do you change your business plan accordingly? Or are you just sort of like, because I mean, you lived through 2008, right? So you must have a couple scars that remind you of that time frame.
Yeah.
So are, I mean, do you try to modify your current plan to suit what you believe the future will hold for you, or do you just have this sort of level of caution now and you still keep accelerating at a steady pace?
There are two types of projections. What's going to happen with the economy is one side of it. The other one is, what are the trends going to be? So there are two facets, two subjects within attempting to project what our industry is going to do. What's going to happen in our economy? What are people going to want? Those are, and I try to break those two in separate categories. So let's start with the economy. It's uncertain. It's more uncertain than I've ever seen it because there are mixed messages. It's not booming. In some areas, the signs are good, but uncertainty is still there. So I won't get into the details of the current uncertain environment. But I do believe that we've gone through a very difficult period for real estate, for office space, for commercial, and for residential, and for rentals because of interest rates,
Yep.
refinancing, all the gamut, the whole sector of our industry has been under pressure. And I think it's going to start getting slowly but surely in a better situation by 2026, 2027. I'm seeing more confidence from builders, developers, and investors for the near future. That's as far as the economy. As far as trends, I'm noticing a change, a shift in lifestyle. The young generation, and it's no longer a secret. They don't want to be tied down to a mortgage. They don't want to be tied down to a location. They want flexibility. They want to be able to travel and move and be more of a nomad type of lifestyle. So I'm noticing a lot of a growing trend of the BTR industry, the build to rent.
Mm-hmm.
And we are adapting to that. We're adapting, for example, we used to overdo the finishes in our homes.
Yeah.
Or certain footprints on the properties because it was designed for end users.
Right.
That was a bulk of the market. The BTR didn't even exist just a handful of years ago. It was a small sector, and it's increasingly growing, exponentially growing at this point, where more people want the amenities of a home. They don't want to, even the luxury condominium, the complexes where you have all the amenities. A lot of people want the privacy of a home. They want their front, their drive, their garage, their patio, the single family structure, but they don't want to own it. This is a relatively new concept, and it's growing. So we're doing a lot of that. That if I had to forecast, to get back to the question, I do believe that you're going to see more and more residential communities designed for rental purpose altogether. And when you design them on paper for rental, you do better than, for example, in my case, where we started them with the purpose of selling them, but the market changed and we converted them to rentals because now it's a nicer home. It's designed for people who are going to own the house and invest in different ways. But when you design it from the beginning, your cost structure is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you cut corners, but you select finishes that are more durable,
Yeah.
more tolerant, less expensive, where people are not going to notice if you have this type of light fixture or this brand name or this color because they're renting it. You want the quality and you want the house to be durable, but you don't have to get so nitty gritty with those selections. So
low maintenance.
Yeah. And when you plan up front, it works a lot better. That is something. So that's part of the forecast. I see a younger generation that wants to be less tied down to a home to a location, to a mortgage. So, that's just for that. Of course, we can get into projecting other sectors of the market, but yes, things are changing. Something that I was recently asked, if in our digital era, is real estate as crucial, is investing in land, is land itself as important? And my answer is yes. I
Yes.
don't care how digital and how modernized we get in the technological aspects of our life, we're still going to need a space to perform all those activities. And retail can do this and that, but we always change the the use of certain buildings, but we still need the buildings and we still need the space. So I think this industry is not going anywhere.
Yep. I'm right there with you. Well, we're nearing the top of the hour. So you have some books. Did you want to plug those? Is there any way that people can reach out to you or anything you want them to take a look at?
Yes, joseberlanga.com. I'm not a big social media. I should. I love it. I love these talks, interviews, but I don't have much of a presence in social media. My intention is to start doing a lot more public speaking and training and all of that. But I do have my second book. The first one was the business of home building, which was not necessarily about how to build a home, but how to build a business that builds homes. It was more
Okay.
business side of things, which is my area of expertise. Again, I keep saying I'm not a builder. I'm not a technical side of the construction industry. I love the business side. And then my second one, Dirt Rich, which is about investing, land speculating, land development, the significance of land, selecting the right piece of dirt for whatever your purpose is, and how everything in this multi-trillion dollar industry of real estate begins with selecting a piece of dirt. That this is where it all begins. It's a little bit more abstract, a little more philosophical than the first book. The first book is very business, more of a how to, but that really applies not just to anyone that wants to build, but anyone who wants to start a business. It allows you to understand the sequence of events and reminds you of what are some of the things that you need to do as an entrepreneur to successfully start and build a company, not just in construction, but in anything else. But Dirt Rich is a little more about the significance of our neighborhoods, our spaces, and the way that we live.
Yeah, I really like that approach. I mean, I've always been like, land investing is perfect for you if every time you see an open field, you imagine 1,000 possibilities of what could be there. And if you
Yeah.
take it a step further to think, well, what does this community actually need? So I think land is for visionaries. It's harder if you walk up to a field and you're like, okay, I see a field. Well, you might struggle. And for me, that's where the passion comes in and the creativity and the excitement is all about it's a blank canvas. And if you're kind of a businessy artist, you can do a lot of cool stuff there. So
Ab- And if you
awesome.
can carry that vision, not only to what your passion and what your hopes for these properties, but what would make more sense in relation to the surroundings and the community, that's where the ideas and the profits start coming together.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jose. I really appreciate you being on. I could probably talk to you for 5 or 10 hours. I always feel so grateful when I have somebody with so much experience in the industry. I mean, I would love to pick your brain forever, but we're
Love
both busy. So thank you again for being
I'm here
on.
anytime. I would love to continue our conversation.
Okay, well, I'll plan for a part two then. I'll reach out to your team and I'll get it scheduled.
Thank you, Logan. It's been great
Yeah.
being with you.
Thank you. Folks, just a reminder, go to landpartnerfunding.com. If you need your land flips, land subdivisions, or entitlement projects funded, we're waiting for you. See you on the next one. Cheers.